I'm Ted Berg for SNY.TV, and this is Know Your Enemy, presented by Pepsi Max. The Yanks' playoff push continues as the Rays come to the Bronx for another big AL East series this weekend. So we're checking in with Jason Collette from draysbay.com. Jason, how are you?
Doing well. How are you doing today?
Not bad. Let's talk about the Rays, and I want to start with the back end of their bullpen. What has happened to Fernando Rodney this season?
It's been amazing to watch, considering the Fernando Rodney that most baseball fans were accustomed to before this season. Really two things they did with him, and both of these were covered by one of my colleagues at Baseball Prospectus, R.J. Anderson. They tightened up his delivery so he wasn't flying open as he used to in the past. And they also moved him from the extreme third base side of the pitching rubber to the first base side. Both of those things have helped him find the strike zone on a much more consistent basis than he used to. And that's really been the secret to his success.
Is there someone we're crediting with this? Because, I mean, you look at Rodney stats, and he's always a guy who walked so many hitters, and now he's not walking anybody. Who can I praise for this change? Because, I mean, Rodney's really been the best reliever in baseball this year.
Really has. And you talk to two different people within the Rays. You talk to pitching coach Jim Hickey, and Jim Hickey is quick to deflect all the attention over to the director of baseball operations, Eric Neander, who in turn wants to flip it right back to Jim Hickey. So those two guys, a combination of looking at the data and looking at the pitcher, those two guys are really who deserve the credit for changing Fernando Rodney into a viable pitcher.
The flip side of things for the Rays, they're a team that can prevent runs so well. They're not always so great at scoring runs. They've got some great offensive players, but up and down the lineup, you look at their numbers and they're not so strong. I know a lot of that is a function of the park, but they don't always produce as well as you might hope.
Yeah, it's really been frustrating for fans to watch because, about 35% of their games, they score less than 3 runs. And the problem is, when they're not scoring those runs, they're not winning games. They've only won 4 games this season when they've scored less than 3 runs, including yesterday, lose to Baltimore 3-2 in 14 innings. The Rays are now 3-21 in games where they've scored 2 runs. That just hurts. And you look at the Yankees, they've only won 4 games when scoring less than 3 runs, but they've only played in 29 of those contests. That's the difference between the two offenses and the two ballparks.
We look at the pitchers in this series. David Price, a guy we've all seen at this point plenty. Looks like he's en route to more Cy Young contention. Anything new out of him or more of the same?
Well, the thing is, his last start he did not do well against, they had the start against the Rangers where he did poorly. He had his last start skipped over some shoulder soreness. So what to get from him tonight, nobody really knows. He said he felt great in his bullpen session, feels like he's back to normal. Yesterday, Cesar Ramos was one of the pitchers that was not using that marathon. He's kind of the ready 5 pitcher there in case something doesn't happen to Price. But when Price has been on, and he has been for most of the season, he's looked fantastic.
Another mainstay of the Rays rotation starting tomorrow, James Shields. He's been real good lately.
He really has been. He had that stretch right in the middle of the season where he had 5 consecutive starts of giving up 10 or more hits and 5 straight starts there. Changed his process a little bit, got back to the James Shields of 2011, and has just been dominating lineups of all shapes and sizes. He's had his difficulty against the Yankees, especially with the left-handed hitters like Robinson Cano and Curtis Granderson, so we'll see where he goes that way, but he's adjusted against some of the other tougher lineups, including shutting down the Rangers most recently.
Finally, Sunday starter Matt Moore has skidded a little bit lately. Is that randomness you expect, or a sign that maybe he's hitting a wall in his rookie season?
I think it's a little bit of randomness. He's had some issues. This is the second time he's faced the Orioles and had some issues. He was really struggling with his secondary pitches earlier this week and just couldn't put guys away. He was getting the 2 strikes, couldn't get that strike 3. When he's on his game, his breaking ball and his changeup are really effective. And if we look, Yankee fans are very familiar with how the team has struggled against left-handed pitching here in the second half of the season. And with Price and Moore in this series, it should help the Rays out in that regard. But if he has the same poor fastball command that he had against Baltimore and can't use his secondary pitches, it's not going to help the Rays at all.
Jason, you mentioned those Orioles. I got to let you go, but the Rays coming off a sweep at their hands, and we got to ask any AL East opponent, any fan of one of their teams, what do you make of these Baltimore Orioles?
You know, they're fun to watch. I made a comment to a friend of mine. I wish the Orioles were in the National League so I could, appreciate the story more instead of being frustrated by it as an American League East fan. They just get it done. I mean, when a guy like Taylor Teagarden has 5 hits on the season and then gets the game-winning hit, or ties the game up yesterday, and he's got 6 hits and 4 of them have either tied the game or put the Orioles ahead on the season. And there's guys like that, Lou Ford, Nate McLeod. They just pick up other people's trash and put them in their lineup, and they produce. It's a very fun story to watch, and I know as a Yankees fan or a Rays fan, you get frustrated by it, but at the same time, you really have to appreciate what they're doing there in Baltimore.
Jason, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Remember, for all the latest Yankee coverage, be sure to check in at itsaboutthemoney.net and chat with other Yankee fans throughout the series at nyfans.com.